Hello everyone, good morning. I'm Abha Yadav and today I will be talking about stakeholder management. So the first question is, who are your stakeholders? So stakeholders are anyone who is affected by your project or perceived to be affected by your project. What exactly is stakeholder management? It is basically taking care of all the individuals who are involved in the project, basically ensuring well-being of everyone involved. One thing which will be coming to your mind is why exactly stakeholder management. You might have heard professor saying that project is of limited time. So why exactly you want to waste your time in stakeholder management when you have limited time? Well, stakeholder management is important. There are many benefits of stakeholder management, out of which few are risk management. You can identify the risk and do the risk mitigation in early on in your project rather than having a surprise at the end of your project. Second thing is ensuring customer satisfied projects. So customer satisfaction is the main goal of your projects. So if the customer is not satisfied, I don't think so the project you can call that project as successful. So one thing will stakeholder management will do is ensuring that customer satisfied project at the end of it or during the project. Then ensuring your project members productivity. So one thing is while you plan, right? So exactly what exactly you have planned based on the productivity of your project members. So whether you are on track, whether you are not on track, whether the project members are working towards the goal, designed goal. So these things you can ensure by doing stakeholder management. And the last thing is you can take informed decisions. So something comes up in between your project, and if you have not informed your stakeholders who are affected by your project and you're doing it by your own will, it might not be very much helpful and it might not satisfy everyone who is involved in project. Next we will move on to steps for engaging stakeholder. So first thing is identifying your stakeholders. So it is very important to ask yourself who are the right stakeholders. So, for example, an accounting guy might be, finding budgets for your purchase for the hardware and tools and software purchase, but he might not be very right or prioritized stakeholder. Once you identify the stakeholders, and then you have to group them together. So, for example, if there are suppliers from the same team, you might want to group them together in order to save time. It also depends on your project activities. So it is grouping of stakeholders are very subjective. The second thing is stakeholder assessment. So you do the high level assessment and then you prioritize. So for example, client might be your highest priority, then your members, and then maybe your suppliers. So like that, you prioritize that and prepare a stakeholder map. And then you plan the communications. So what exactly planning the communication mean is basically, how frequently you'll engage with stakeholders, what are the engagement activities, what are the type of, communication channel which you'll be using with stakeholders, maybe, a Zoom meeting or an email or newsletter, something like that. So identifying stakeholder assessment and communication, these three things are done at the start of your project, and then comes engage stakeholder activities. So basically in this will be done during your project. So you take help from stakeholder to support ongoing activities, you align the task and milestone with your stakeholders, you seek feedback, and it's important to seek feedback as well as to work on the feedback. So these are the steps for engaging your stakeholders. So we will talk next about engaging stakeholders based on their interest and influence. So what happens if you have a stakeholder who has high interest but low influence? So in that scenario, you inform the stakeholder completely, but you don't have to engage in regular meetings or something like that. What happens if your stakeholder has high interest and high influence? So in that scenario, you have to inform your stakeholder completely, as well as you have to engage them regularly. In case of low interest and low influence, you only have to provide essential information and decide basically at the start of your project what exactly, the frequency you want for the meetings and engagement activities. And the last thing is the low interest and high influence stakeholders. So, in that scenario, you have to monitor them regularly and you have to basically anticipate the needs of the stakeholders. This is one of the toughest stakeholder to manage because they might, they have very high influence on your project, but they are not showing any interest. So, in that scenario, you have to anticipate the needs of stakeholders, and based on that, you have to engage them continuously. In one of the previous slide, I talked about steps for engaging stakeholders. So I talked about identifying stakeholder, assessing, and then planning the communication. And the last step was engaging the stakeholder during the project. So this particular slide talks more about the last step, which is engaging the stakeholder during the project. So first thing is we will have, maybe you can have a Zoom call meeting, in-person meeting or some email communication or newsletter. In that particular, setup, you inform the stakeholder about the progress of this project or the achievements of the project's milestone task, or you also talk about the hurdles of the project. This is one of the important thing to inform stakeholders, because as I mentioned earlier, one of the outcome of stakeholder management is risk management. And if you're not talking about the hurdles, you might not be able to do the risk management. And then by informing them, you seek feedback, you track the progress of the feedback, whatever your stakeholder has given, you document them properly. It will be a part of your learning curve. And then the last thing is rating. So once you work on your feedback, then it's not just, you work on your feedback, you take inputs from your stakeholder, whether they are satisfied with your feedback, or if they are not satisfied, what are the ways to improve that particular process or mechanism, how you can do better next time. Stakeholder management is not an easy task. In fact, a project manager requires to have so many different skills in order to manage stakeholders effectively. These are the skills which I have noted down. For example, emotional intelligence, people skill, active listening. The project manager should identify the gaps and fill it. Project manager should also have conflict resolution skills and also facilitate whatever is required within the project. Agile versus waterfall. So at the start of my research, I was thinking why exactly stakeholders management is always associated with agile, not with waterfall management. And here is the answer. So I have considered different stakeholders for a software development project. Maybe there are stakeholders like team members, project manager, customers, company. And in agile process, you can see all the stakeholders are happy, but in waterfall process, I feel the team members are happy independent of what method we are using. It is mostly dependent on the type of work they're doing, as well as, the project manager. But all the others like project manager, company, sponsor, and customer and suppliers, they all are confused basically what exactly is the output of the project, whether the project manager is going in the right path or not, whether whatever the project manager is producing is correct based on the requirement or not. In waterfall model, these all are surprise, but in agile method, you can exactly have a stakeholder engagement and verify these answers. So thank you, and if you have any question, I'm there in class.